Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the quantum coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. I'm so pumped to have the Megan Reed on the show today. She is, as you heard, a confidence coach, a quantum coach, boundary setting queen, and all about helping you step into your main character energy. And we're going to talk about all of these things and so much more. I'm so pumped for our episode. Hi, Megan.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, so pumped. So would love to start with, the big question of how have you become the most confident version of yourself that you are today? And what has that journey been like for you? Because I know confidence is such a huge pain point for so many of us, and myself included, right? As I elevate in different ways, like different things come up, and I'm just curious, like what that journey has been like for you in becoming who you are today.
Wow. Okay. Diving in with a big question right off the bat. Okay. How have I turned into my most confident self, who I am today? I want to preface this conversation with like what confidence is.
Yeah.
Because I think can look different for everyone, right? There's maybe this misconception that to be confident, that means you're extroverted and loud and know a lot of things, right? Which can be true and also don't have to be your story, right? So for me to step into my most confident self, it was this self-awareness unlearning of who I truly was and how I could be that person without the self-doubt, right? Without like second guessing, is this me or is this who I think I have to be? So that confidence journey for me started back when I was working in the corporate world. And it started actually with a book. Do you remember when you first like had like an awakening and realized you could do more? This was me back in the late 2000s. I don't know the exact years. But I read the book, The Happiness Advantage, and I realized that I got to be in charge of my life and my confidence. And if I could show up authentically as myself, then I could be confident as well.
Yes. Two things that kind of feel like they would butt heads. Like, okay, my authentic self, we usually don't feel super confident about that version of ourselves, even though that's the part of ourselves that actually is like meant to shine and kind of be forward facing in the world, that we oftentimes want to hide. But I love that. I love that. It's funny because I was with my cousin this weekend and she identifies as a people pleaser, and we've been talking about it for a long time, and it comes up a lot in her corporate job and in life, and she's pregnant. And I was like, you can't be a people pleaser as a mom. Like you can be, but it's going to make your journey so much harder. I was like, but honestly, who would you be if you weren't a people pleaser? And it's really an identity that we fall into. And I bring up people pleasing because I feel like for so many, it's almost the opposite of confidence. I don't know. Does that sound true?
Yes. Yeah. And I love people pleasing as the opposite of confidence. That's so Interesting. I like that. Here's my initial thought when you said she identifies as a people pleaser. I'm curious if she has ever identified as a recovering people pleaser, because one of the things that's so important with confidence is the way that we identify and speak about ourselves, right? Confidence is a state of being that we can access at any time. And if we're identifying as a people pleaser, that's the state of being that we're accessing, right? But if we say that we're a recovering people pleaser, we are acknowledging that we maybe have people pleased in the past, but it has nothing to do with how we act in the future.
We are on the same page, same line, same page, because that was basically my coaching to her. It was like, whenever you have that urge to say, because she likes to say, like, it's like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. I'm people pleasing right now. And she'll call herself out. And I said, try on, I used to be a people pleaser. Kind of the same, yes. Well, you're a quantum coach. So obviously you're going to have the most amazing reframe possible. So good. I love that.
That's actually, I love that point. I was in Target the other day and I saw this shirt that said, I'm an overthinker, or it was like chronic overthinker or something. And I was like, I would never purchase this shirt. Like, and on the side, it was like, and I'm okay with that. And I'm like, are you okay with that? Or are you just like apologizing for the fact that you anxiously overthink things? And I was like, why would you identify with something that was hindering you from being your most confident self, right?
Oh, true. I've seen so many shirts like that where I'm like, I would literally never buy that. I would never wear that. I would never label myself. Like, shame on you, Target, for even having that.
Yes. Although they did have this shirt that I'm wearing right now that says be kind.
I like your shirt.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But the way we speak about ourselves and the way that we identify really matters when it comes to our confidence. And that's actually one of the chapters in my book is about watching your mouth, right? Like the way that you talk about yourself is you creating your own reality.
So Megan wrote a book. It's called Main Character Energy, and it is so awesome. It's so funny. I'm reading it right now. And I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Like, how did you, because I feel like people want to write books, but then they have that imposter syndrome kick in, or like, whatever shows up for them, the self-doubt, and they don't do it, or they don't take action. Like, how did you, as a confidence coach, like practice what you preach in the creation of your book?
Well, I'm going to start with the first part of that question. That wasn't really a question where people like want to write a book and then they don't. And it's because they say, oh, I'm not a writer, or, oh, I don't have anything to say, or who would read my book? There's a lot of reasons why we don't write a book. But for me, I always knew growing up that, there's a home video of me as a third grader saying I wanted to write and illustrate children's books when I grew up. Like, I always knew there was a part of me that wanted to write a book, but I did have those doubts that were like, what would I even write about? Right. I was like, I don't have anything to put in a book. And I thought that for a very long time, until one night I was feeding my daughter in the nursery, and it was sometime in August, maybe around my birthday. And I was just like, I have to write a book, and I have to call it Main Character Energy. And it just like came to me from the universe, and then immediately panic. And the panic was, what if somebody takes the title of my book before I can finish it? Because that was at the time when Main Character Energy was like starting to be a phrase people were using. And I was like, this is the phrase for my book. And so I had this creative fear that somebody else would take my idea. So I got to work out of a little bit of fear, right? That I didn't want all my thoughts to come out shortly after somebody else had those thoughts too. Because one of the things that my deepest inner critic tells me that I learned in the Quantum Coaching Academy, actually through that exercise we did during QCA Live, my inner critic tells me that I'm not special. And so that and I know that about myself now. So for me to hear the book title in my head, and then my inner critic said, somebody else is going to do it, and then you won't be special. I was like, no, I'm going to be effing special. I'm going to do this. And so it was kind of me proving to myself that one, I can do this. And two, I am special. And it actually, from the moment I decided to write a book, was less than a year before it was published.
That's unbelievable. That's huge.
It's so crazy. I'm so excited. It's not even out while we're recording this. It's not out in the world yet, but when this is live, it will be out in the world. So there's this really interesting like period of time here where I'm so excited and I don't even know how it's going to feel to see it in real life.
Like to hold your book.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, and it's the journey, right? Like this journey that you're on, isn't this the destination? This is it.
Yes. The journey is the destination. And so much is coming up for me, right? That it's great for creating content as a confidence coach, right? One of the best ways that I teach people how to build confidence and show up with authenticity is sharing my journey of doing that same thing, right? And how all the times where I'm not confident and what I'm doing about it. Because there's so many times where I just have had to let go of my ego on this book writing process because I'm setting it to like my peer editors and then my regular editor, and all these times where I'm getting feedback that maybe I don't really want.
Yes.
It's all part of your confidence building journey, right? Just accepting that feedback is a gift, and you don't have to be confident all the time, which is something I'm working on and sharing with the world.
I love that you said that so much because it's so true, because no one's confident 100% of the time. Like if you're not doing something that's scaring, like Megan, you're doing something right now that's like, it's kind of big. It's huge. It's scary. Like you're putting yourself out there in a way that you never have before. You're pushing the comfort zone. And anytime we push those comfort zones, of course, you're going to doubt yourself. Like that's just part of the process of expansion. It's like it's that contraction before the expansion. Right?
So true. It's so true. And, as we unpeel these layers to ourselves, we find that there's even more deeper stuff we didn't know about. Something that actually came up for me last week, which kind of made me, it was like an aha moment of why I didn't write a book sooner, was I was afraid that if I put all my thoughts into a book, I wouldn't have anything left to share with the world.
Wow. That's so funny.
And since then, I've continued to create content, and it's just elevated based off of what I poured out into the book. And so it's so wild when you learn something about yourself and you overcome this fear. There's always so much growth on the other side of wherever you're experiencing discomfort.
It's so true. I mean, I'll just share because we just had this conversation. Megan and I were talking, and I was sharing how I'm in this like weird middle place right now where I'm navigating my new identity as a mom, as a business owner and a CEO. And I was like, I just want to create mom content and like funny mom things. But I know that I can't do that because it just doesn't go with my brand, or it's not really, part of whatever. I had all these limiting beliefs around it. And Megan messaged me. You coached me on the spot. Go ahead. Do you remember what you said to me?
I remember you were talking about, and I said, Ashley, are you asking for permission to post whatever you want on your own Instagram?
Yeah. I was like, oh shit. I just got served.
Yes. And then I stayed awake thinking about you all night and sent you a voice message in the morning with a few more questions.
Yeah. And they were so great. And now I'm in the inquiry of like, okay, this is actually the content, sharing the messy middle, like being willing to be seen in this way and not having to be perfect and all the things. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just asking the right questions, and I learned that from you.
Oh, you're the best. You're the best. Ooh. I forget how that was relevant to what we were just saying, but it was somehow.
You're so right. It will come back to me why it was relevant. It will come back to us.
It will come
Both
back
of
to
us.
us. And maybe it won't. And that's okay too.
Yes, the audience is following.
Yes, everyone is just soaking all of this in right now. So on the realm of confidence and like stepping into the main character energy of your life, because I know I want to talk about boundaries too, but I still want to talk about this. What are some of your biggest tips? Obviously, read Megan's book, but how to really choose the state of confidence and step into your main character energy.
Mm. I would say the first step and the one overarching umbrella tip that I could provide for anybody who is wanting to step in their main character energy, right? To really own who you are, love, show up authentically, is you have to actually know who you are if you want to love who you are. And so it starts there. You begin to know yourself so that you can love yourself, so that when you show up as your authentic self, that's your main character energy, right? Main character energy is the notion that like you are the main character of your story. It doesn't matter what has happened to you in your life, no matter where you come from, you're the main character. And while you have supporting roles, your story is important and you get to show up as your true self. Just like there's characters in movies and they're all different and they all experience different things and they get out of their comfort zone and they experience, quote unquote failure and whatever those things are. That's how you step into your main character energy. It's just like being the true you and unapologetically going after what it is that you want.
So hard to do for so many people, but the most important work they will ever do it. But I love that you have to know yourself in order to love yourself, because that is like, oh, that just hit me like, wow, that is so true.
Yes.
I think I read, what chapter was that in? Do you remember?
You know where you're at in the book? That was probably in the beginning. I mean, it starts
I think it was in like chapter 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So good.
The first chapter is about going after what you want. And then we dive right into like owning your weird and getting out of your own way and leaving your comfort zone. It goes hard in the paint.
Yes, it does. It really does. And it's so good. It's so good. I love that. So for someone who is stuck in the doubt, like what role do you feel like doubt plays on your journey to really loving yourself and stepping into your main character energy?
A huge role, right?
Yeah.
So people who experience self-doubt then hear their inner critic tell them that the self-doubt is wrong, that it's wrong to have self-doubt. What if I told you that it's totally normal to have self-doubt and everyone has it?
Right.
What we don't want is to let that spiral of self-doubt, negative, like limiting beliefs and all that self-talk. What we don't want is for that to keep us from moving forward, right? There is always going to be fear as you level up, new level, new devil. There's always going to be that deepest inner critic coming back up and that self-doubt, wondering, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I want? That's great. Self-reflect right there. Kind of lean into that doubt. What learning can you take away from that doubt? What is it trying to tell you? And how can you leverage that experience?
Leveraging your self-doubt. That's so powerful. I feel like that's, oh my God, that's so, because we get caught up in the doubt and it can take us down that like dark spiral. But what if we were taught from a young age to use it, right? Like we're going to teach our kids, whenever you feel that feeling come up, let's look at it. Let's use it to leverage it, to make the most of it, because it's there for your growth. It's there to take you where you want to go. Yeah. Quick little side note. I had and also I believe that things in our reality will reflect our doubt to us and help us transcend it. So for example, I had someone who wanted to join QCA. She was on an application call and she was all about it. And then she found out that the day that we meet is the day that it's her money-making day at work. Right. So I said to her, well, of course it's your money-making day at work. right? Because she wants to take this program to like change her whole life and to do something completely different. But that's going to require her to break away from the comfort zone, from the thing that is comfortable and secure in the moment to live her dream, essentially. Right. Like, and how it makes perfect sense to me as someone from the outside that of course that would be the day that she is her money-making day that she would have to give up in order to take this new path on. So it shows up in really uncomfortable ways, but it brings us those not final. What am I saying? Like that big moment of making a decision that's going to like change everything for us.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Self-doubt as a decision-making tool.
Yes.
Right? Just like money is a tool, knives are tools, TV for screen time for your child is a tool, right? All these things are tools and we get to decide how to use them. So why not decide that self-doubt is going to be there? We might as well use it to our advantage.
Right? Yeah. So cool. So cool. Okay. So in living your most authentic life, right? In being the main character in your story, I'm just curious, how do you embody that for yourself every day? Like, is there like a ritual, or do you just like walk out the house and you're like, I'm the fucking shit. Like,
I wish I walked out of the house saying that. Most days, some days I don't even get out of the house before,
I get it.
9 a.m. with a toddler. But for me, the kind of embodiment of my most authentic self comes back at the end of the day, really, when I reflect on how the day went and if I showed up as my true self and how I feel about that. And if there are times when I didn't show up as my true self, like reflection is so important in the self-awareness process. What would I like to do differently next time that would feel more authentic and in alignment and integrity with my values? So that's part of the self-awareness piece is what do you value and who are you? And then how can you act with that in mind in accordance to that every single day? So for me, I'm very real. I love being on Instagram and sharing with the world exactly what's going on, not just like the good things, because good things happen, but also when I'm struggling, I share that too, to just kind of normalizing the human experience. I'm big on that. I'm a little weird, right? And I don't care. Weird is cool, right? So I lean into that. Cool. And if at the end of the day, I look back and there were times where I showed up like buttoned up and professional in a certain way that feels like I was trying to be someone else, those are when I notice and I kind of reflect on like, why did I feel like I had to be someone else? Like, was it somebody in the room? Was it a story that I was telling myself? And the next time that situation or that person or whatever comes up, how can I act differently? And how would I like to act?
That's so good. That whole like process of reflection and self-awareness is next level, right? Really. I love all of that. Do you journal about it or do you just think about it?
A mix of both. Sometimes it's just thinking, at the end of the day, a long day. The best reflection does happen when I journal, like when I can just like get it out on pen and paper. And I've actually never thought about this before, why reflection versus like preparation. But for acting authentically, you are the most authentic when in the moment things happen, right? Like that's the real you, where you're not like taking a pause and being like, how should I act about this? The way that you act is your most authentic self. And if you want to change that, it's a reflection type process to prepare you for the next time rather than in the moment. Sometimes you don't get a chance to like pause the whole scene and think about how you feel like you should act, right?
Love that. How does that translate for you into creating content?
For me in creating content, I don't batch content. that's, I don't know if that's a boundary energetic thing. I have tried to do, and some days I suppose it's more of an I follow my energy kind of thing. Cause some days I do. There was one day I made like 9 reels. I was on fire.
Yeah.
And then some days I don't create any content at all. But for me, I really follow my energy and I act like as my true self in those contents. When I find that things are forced, it's because I'm not showing up authentically. And that content never lands. Like my audience knows, like, who is that?
Yeah. Megan makes the best content, best reels. So good. So good.
Thank you. I received
Thanks
that.
for sharing that. Yeah, of course. So switching gears to, when you're living your most authentic, true to you life, loving yourself, truly being in your main character energy, there's boundaries that need to be put in place. And so I'm curious, how does one put boundaries in place? And I know you talk about quantum boundaries. And of course I'm obsessed with that because I'm obsessed with everything quantum. What do quantum boundaries mean? And how do you develop them?
Okay. So that sounded like a few questions in one.
Yeah.
I'm going to start
I'm really question stacking today.
You're really getting me. Well, I'm going to start with like, what is quantum boundaries? I mean, I don't have to tell you what quantum means, right? As the quantum coach, but for anyone listening that needs a little refresh, and like quantum physics is the idea that all things are made up of energy, and atoms vibrate all their little particles at, certain rates, and boundaries in your energy vibrates at a certain rate too. And so the idea of quantum boundaries is that as you raise your vibration to a certain level with your boundaries, your energy will communicate them for you. And you don't have to say, hey, no, like that's inappropriate for me, or like, I don't receive that. Any kind of boundary that you would be setting, when you have quantum boundaries, your energy sets them for you and you didn't have to say anything.
Whoa, I love that so much.
It's so cool. It's awesome.
It is awesome. So how does one start to get into that energy and vibration of setting that up?
Totally. So the more that you learn about yourself, or I suppose let me rewind and just talk about like what boundaries are in general. Boundaries are expectations that we communicate, right? Mm-hmm. They are, imagine if you had a big old piece of land and your farmer neighbor also has a big old piece of land, and you both have a fence with a gate in between. And that helps you know that like, this is mine and this is yours. Like the weeds in his property are his responsibility and not yours. Say his weeds started coming into your property, you get to like communicate like, hey, this is not okay for me. And that gate there with the fence is you saying like, I'll allow this in, I won't allow that. And you get to decide, right? So boundaries, these expectations that we communicate can feel so masculine energy, right? The how to have difficult conversations and how to say no and stand up for ourselves. That's all the masculine part of it. And that's a great start when you kind of can learn and identify where you need boundaries. We start there. And then as you get deeper into it, it turns into this feminine flow of you no longer have to sit and think about where you need boundaries because you've been experiencing and feeling them for so long that your energy, that feminine flow, I like to say it's the energetics of being unfuckable with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I love your definition. It's like having just clear expectations of what did you say? It's expectations
that we communicate. Yes. So when you're in your masculine, you're communicating verbally. And right. When you're in your feminine, you're communicating with your energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you still have to know what your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And the question that I get often is, how do I know where I need better boundaries?
Yeah.
And I always say, you're going to feel it. When you need a boundary, you're going to notice in your body that you're feeling some type of way, right? Like that heaviness in your chest, or a lump in your throat, or a pit in your stomach, or just like that rage behind your eyes.
Trigger. The trigger. The trigger
Yes.
goes off and you're like,
yes, those feelings in your body are a really good indicator that a boundary either needs to be communicated, or once been crossed, it needs to be re-communicated or brought up. That's how you know that there needs to be a boundary, is if you're feeling some type of way and it's not a good type of way, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's the visual that just came to me was that arcade game. It's not ping pong. What's that game where like the ball shoots up and it goes into all those little things? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my
Pinball.
gosh.
Pinball.
Pinball.
Yeah.
I just had this visual of pinball where it's like when you need a boundary, you kind of feel like you're in a pinball machine and you're like,
yes,
hitting all these edges.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. So you feel like you're in a pinball machine when you need a boundary. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is take a step back and acknowledge where you're feeling that, and where that feeling came from, right? That pinball came from that little place where you shoot it, but what shot that off?
Right.
What was the moment in time that sent that trigger into your body that said, there needs to be a boundary here. My energy is like out of alignment with what's happening right now.
So good.
Good.
And what happens if you're like, okay, my mom just said something to me and it set me off, and it made me feel, or like identify like what you made it mean about you. So like, and it made me feel like very small or like insignificant. And then where does one take it from there?
Yeah. So you've identified what you're feeling and where it came from.
Yeah.
What would you rather feel is where I would take it next. What would you rather feel? And what do you need to work through in order to release that negative feeling, or the feeling that doesn't feel good, right? Like there's sometimes benefit to a negative feeling, right? It's an indicator that something needs to change. But what would you like to feel instead?
Yes. What would you like to feel instead? That is so good.
Yes. And then so you're finding your energetic minimum, right? You're like, this is what I want to feel, and set up, like, you can't see me on the camera. I'm doing all kinds of hand motions, right? Because as you know, in quantum physics, that highest energy wins.
Yeah.
So when you decide that, you're like, oh, I don't want to feel this dread. I'd like to feel, content even, or at peace, going up that emotional ladder. That highest energy is going to win. And that boundary sometimes sets itself. And sometimes you do have to say something, right? Like, not that, I would say the thing with quantum boundaries, or with boundaries in general, is we can't expect people to read our minds.
Right.
And so while the idea of not saying a word to communicate a boundary is really exciting, there are times when an energetic boundary isn't enough, right? There's always a time and a place for a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to bring that up earlier because I feel like it definitely, I think that they both have to be balanced energy, right? Like the feminine and the masculine of the boundary setting, because if you're not communicating, but you're just assuming that someone's going to feel it and know it, then it could end up in a big miscommunication, or, a problem situation. Yes. I only think of that because it's like, sometimes someone in my life has expectations of me that I'm not meeting, but I don't know what their expectations are. So in that regard, you want to ask them to communicate what they are. Because I think the boundary can work the opposite way, where that person has a boundary that someone else doesn't know about. And so the receiver of the boundary Am I making sense?
You're making sense. I have a challenge back for you.
Okay. Tell me.
Ooh. So if somebody's expecting something of you, but they don't say anything, is that your business?
No, but yet. And,
Yeah.
and when it's like someone super close to you, that's where like guilt can come in and, all that good stuff.
Yes. I hear 100% where you are. And I want to acknowledge and validate that that's real. That's 100% real. And also, this is something that I see with my clients a lot who are, recovering people pleasers. Is so often we can project what we think somebody's thinking of us. And it creates this whole cycle of unmet expectations because we're both projecting things about each other and not communicating it, right?
You're basically describing the relationship that I'm having with my mom right now.
Does your mom listen to your podcast?
Sometimes.
Hi, Mom.
Hi. We might not skip this episode. We might skip it or we might not. We'll see. I'm just kidding. No, it's so true. It's so true. It's like a lot. Yeah. Everything that you just said, basically.
Yes. In a situation like this, where two people who love each other very much are experiencing like expectations, but having a hard time communicating with each other, this is a time where I recommend like reflecting on what the problem is behind the miscommunication, right? With the law of attraction, like what you embody, you become. What are you embodying that's causing a misalignment here?
Right. Like what's causing the loop over and over and over and over again? What's causing this pattern to repeat over and over again? Because it's not the bullshit in the moment. It's usually something like there's a root underneath of it all that needs to be pulled out.
Totally. Yes. For a lot of my clients, they experience things like that. And the underlying belief is that they're not enough. And so it doesn't matter whatever is happening here. They don't feel validated or appreciated or seen or respected. And it plays on and it plays on because they're not willing to let go of that story.
Right. And oftentimes I would dare to assume that it's probably because both people are operating from that space. Right. So it's like when both people are operating from the space of not enoughness, and then it's really dragging it out. Yeah. So someone's got to give it up. Someone's got to do that work so that they can be unfuckable with the bull.
Yes.
With the bull. With.
Yes. It's unfuck with a bull. Unfuckable with. Yeah. Unfuckable with.
Unfuckable. Thank you. Unfuckwittable. I added a little word.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this right here is that feminine energy of being unfuckable with. When you decide that you want to raise your energetic vibration higher than you have been in that place where maybe you feel like you weren't enough. How would you rather feel than not enough?
Yeah. And from that space, if you can really let that go and be secure, right? Like feel safe in your being, just the way that you are, that's when you rise above the trigger.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So powerful.
And that's the hard part.
Yes. Yes. So often with the boundaries, it's our survival, our subconscious mind, it's our initial instinct to want to change and fix the other person.
Yeah. You're wrong. I'm right.
Yes. You change, you do better. You're doing this wrong, right? How can we acknowledge and validate ourselves in our journey and know that with boundaries, it has a lot to do with responsibility. Like, what is our responsibility? What is not? It's that fence that we're creating. the way that other people act is not our responsibility. While it does suck sometimes, the only thing that is our responsibility is us. So how can we do ourselves that service, unlearn what we've been taught, and work on us, and know that by doing that, we're setting an example for the other person to do the same.
Wow. That is crazy powerful. And I feel like that could change the world, like actually change the world. Because we like it's the connections with the people that we're closest with that I don't even know, but it's so good. It's so good. So good. Thank you.
Yes. I'm like speechless after that.
Yeah. That's it. That's your episode today.
That's a wrap.
Mic drop. Okay. So I have to ask you, what makes you a badass manifester?
What makes me a badass manifester? I have manifested. It's so wild when you actually can realize how powerful you truly are, right? And I have recently, since having a baby, have been realizing how powerful I truly am. And I have actual instances that I've been sharing with Brandon, my husband, about that I manifested something so wild. I manifested a pregnancy. I manifested writing a book. What was it? I manifested being on this podcast. I think I pitched you for this podcast like a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. That's so crazy.
And I told Brian, I was like, I'm going to be, when the quantum boundaries idea came to me, I was like, I need to speak to Ashley about this. I have to share how, like, just the art of being the type of person that has those boundaries, right? Like, how does that person act? What makes me a badass manifester is the fact that I continue to pursue the things that I truly desire with zero apologies.
Boom. Yeah.
It took me a long time to say that, but I got to it.
No, but I love how you outlined that, because it's so true. It's like when you can recognize how powerful you are, it gives you the juice to keep going and to be like unapologetic in going after whatever the fuck you want. Because you realize like this is our playground. We get to play here. We get to expand. We get to explore. We get to see how far we can take this thing.
So true. I manifested QCA too. It was my goal in 2021. It was like January 1, and I wrote down, I was like, I want to get certified in coaching. I want to do more with my like skills that I have currently. And my friend, like 2 days later, sent me your podcast episode with Jen Casey about QCA. And I literally filled out the application that day. I had an interview the next day, and QCA started that week. Like, I was like one of the last people to enroll, and it was like divine timing. Like, the universe gives you exactly what you need when you ask for, like when you ask for it, when you want it, when you need it, it's there for you.
I'm so glad you said that. And it's to me, like, I'm sure all of you listening right now can tell how amazing of a coach Megan is. Like, Megan also, like, she'll coach me. She'll pose questions to me, like, and she feels confident enough to do that because she knows her shit. You know, she knows what she's doing. And watching you just blossom, watching you step, you're such an amazing example of what's possible for someone when they decide to go all in on their dreams and on themselves and on the impact that they came here to make. And like, look at you, you wrote a book, it's going out into the world. You have a beautiful business. You lead retreats. You're the embodiment of the dream coach, right? Anybody would look at you and your business and be like, that is what I want. You speak on stages. I mean, your own podcast, like, you do it all. And you are the embodiment of that. So if that's what you're manifesting, get into Megan's world, because she's here to show you what's possible, obviously, in all the ways. So
I
so
love
proud
that.
of you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I received that. It sounds so cool to hear you say it though, right? Like, oh, so
Right.
good.
I mean, reflection, right? Reflection.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you're doing it and you've done it and you're on a rocket ship there and you're going.
We're going to keep going up. I love what you said about me coaching you, and I'm confident I know my shit. There is, to our conversation earlier, there's always self-doubt and imposter syndrome when interacting with somebody who's taught you so much, right? But the thing is, I don't let it get in my way. Like I do. I'm like, should I say this to her? I'm going to say it and then maybe reflect later.
I'm so glad you did. So glad you did. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you, follow you, work with you, read your book, everything?
All the things. Well, you can find me for the most part on Instagram. We have a lot of fun there at Hey Megan Reed. Megan spelled Megan, Reed spelled Reed. And also heymeganreed.com. That is my website. We have a lot of fun over there. You can learn all about my community, coaching. I have a fun quiz to help you discover your confidence blind spot. That's really a good time. As well as basically anything you need, you can grab from my Instagram and my website. And if you have any questions or want to share any of your takeaways from today's podcast, I would love to hear from you. Gosh, just so honored to be in your space for the past hour.
Me too. Thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful nuggets of wisdom. There's so much in here, so much inner work for one to do from this episode, and definitely tag us and let us know what lit you up the most, what resonated the most, what triggered you the most, whatever. We're here for it all.
Love it.
Love it. Go buy Megan's book. Can they go buy it on your website?
Yes, I will probably have I love how this is like, yes, you can buy it on my website. I will have a link there. It's currently it's on Amazon right now, but I'll link it on my website as well.
You got it. Main character energy. Find it, read it, love it, live it. Beautiful. Until next time. See you next week. Bye. Woo. We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fam. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at Manifest with Ash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.